All right, so back here on the 1978 Toyota pickup and working on the rear end. So trying to get the 4 bars set up. So just sort of used a bunch of random scraps of wood and whatever I could get in order to get my ride height set up where I need it to be. So my wheels are a bit more than 24 inches in diameter. And so I'm setting the center of the axle there at 12 1/4. And so I got that all leveled out. And then same thing there, just a bunch of random pieces of wood and scraps and whatever I can get working in order to get my pinion angle squared away. And then those holes in the frame there, fortunately, I measured a bunch and took a look. They are right at the center line of where the old axle was. I do have adjustment inside of the 4 bars in order to move it a little bit, but you know, I want to try to get it as close as I can at this stage in order to make everything, you know, easy to adjust. As far as all the angles I'm dealing with, so I got the motor set here at like 2 1/7 or 2 1/8 set back, and then same thing here, got the rear end set the same direction. So hopefully, you know, when those angles are meeting up with each other, the drive shaft will have a nice angle to it, so that should be good. As far as these ones here, so these are supposed to be mostly perpendicular to the ground, and so, you know, again, I have adjustment there in order to get all that squared away, but those are pretty square. Same thing here, you know, those are supposed to be perpendicular to the ground. I did a little bit of digging around, and I asked the guy that I got the kit from on what we're supposed to be here for this lower bar. Most, you know, for super tame driving, they said you can be perfectly level with the ground. And then, you know, for a bit of help with anti-squat to get it kicked upwards a little bit. And so I worked in about 1 degree. But again, you know, since these bars are adjustable, you know, if that doesn't work, you know, I can dial that back. So this is looking pretty good. I got the, you know, frame, again, with just some random pieces of wood and everything to try to get that at level as possible. It's really good side to side. And so, yeah, it's working pretty good here. The thing that you can see, though, that I'm going to have a problem with is there ain't hardly any gap here. So, you know, you really should have like 2.5 to 3 inches of travel for your suspension. And then you don't want your, you know, you don't want this to bottom out onto the frame. So you do even need a little bit more than that. And so you can see like 3 inches would take me to about the bottom of that little, you know, rubber bit that's in there to cover up the hole for the frame, is kind of the bare minimum. And really, I mean, 4 inches would be better, so that way, you know, I could have a bump stop on the bottom of the frame and not worry about this thing crashing into the metal and making a mess of stuff. And so also this cross member, you can see here, like there is not a lot of clearance there. And when that gets moving up, that cross member is definitely gonna hit the casing of the differential. And so, yeah, I mean, this ain't gonna work. So I'm gonna leave that cross member in place for now in order to make sure the frame is, you know, totally solid and everything's where it needs to be. And then here, I'm going to have to notch the frame. Since I only need to get, you know, to the top of that rubber piece, I won't do a full step notch. So, you know, I'm sure you've seen them ones that kind of come up at an angle and they're like a big you know, step notch that comes over the top of the frame. You know, something that look like this, you know, with a giant notch inside of it. But I don't need that amount of clearance. I just need, you know, about 2 inches more than what it currently has. And so I'll just get up to here. And so what my plan is, you know, I got to clean all this metal up, obviously. I can't weld to that. So I'll clean all that metal up. And then I got these big old pieces of flat bar that I've used for all kinds of random project stuff. But this stuff is beef. I mean, it is 1/2 inch thick, 1.5 inches tall. And so what my plan is to put this on either side. So I'll do one on the outside, one on the inside. And then I got some square tubing over here that I've used. And so this stuff is it's 1.5 inches around diameter, and then it's 1/8 inch thick. And so I'll use that across the top. And so if I build out, and I did some measuring, so if I build the frame out to where I have an extra, you know, 1/2 inch on this side and an extra 1/2 inch on the other side, that square tubing, I'll be able to get 2 pieces and weld them together so they become one piece, cap the ends of it, and then I can, you know, use that for the top support. I don't have to worry about that extra height on the frame causing an issue in the wheel well, because, you know, if we look over here, you know, there's lots of room at the bottom. So there's, you know, the frame doesn't hit the inside of the wheel well, it comes in a little bit. And so if I make the frame a little bit taller at this point, it'll just take up some more space in the wheel well. So that shouldn't be an issue for anything. So that's sort of where I'm sitting now. I think as far as where the 4 bar's at, I feel pretty good about that. I just got a couple of tacks. It's not finished welded or anything, but it's in place. I got to take those bars out and finish weld it, make sure everything stays okay. With this housing, you know, I do have to finish weld all the way around the housing, but I got to do that sort of careful, because I definitely don't want that housing to twist or bend or anything. So I might end up like welding, you know, like a piece of flat bar or something to it to make sure that I don't warp it. But, you know, it's 1/8 inch thick, so it should be okay, but I definitely don't want to run into any issues. You know, them brackets are 3/16, and so, you know, I don't want to be getting after them brackets all heavy and then warping that casing. That'd be bad. And so, yeah, I got some finish welding to do and planning out that notch, but that notch shouldn't be too bad, so I should be able to get after that and make some decent progress this weekend. After that notch is in place, I gotta, you know, get to looking at what I'm gonna do with that crossbar. There's no way in hell that's gonna work as it stands. It's definitely gonna crash into that crossbar. I'd really like to keep that structure in there until I get the other one in place. So what I'll probably end up doing is I'll leave that totally in place as long as I can, and then the shock mounts that I have, so I got these big old long bolts, and then what ends up happening is the coilover mounts to these bottom pieces here with those big old long bolts and a spacer, and then they need to have a crossbar to mount the top to. So I need to make a crossbar that comes right here and goes across on the back side in order to, you know, have a place for the top of those coilovers to mount. And so, you know, I definitely want to get that in place to where I have that same rigidity in the frame, so I don't have to worry about anything moving on me before I cut that cross member out. So I gotta, you know, leave that in for now, even though it's sort of in my way. until I get this other one done. So lots of little steps, but you know, pretty good progress. You know, certainly with that big old 9-inch in there, and you know, the big old 370 gears with a limited slip, I mean, that sucker's gonna eat up whatever power I end up throwing at it. I mean, this is good for 500, and I don't think this rig will ever see more than 4. So should be plenty of beef for what I'm gonna throw at it. All right, well, I'll get after it. Thanks. See you in the next one.